Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of The Right Angle. I'm your host, Alan, joined by CJ.
Hello, I'm CJ.
And we have a new host, JC. JC, would you like to tell about yourself?
Hello, I'm JC from the Department of Design, taking graphic design. And one fun fact, I have way too many type of slash jobs in a way. So kind of like I'm a producer slash filmmaker slash photographer slash artist slash DJ slash musician. Too many slashes. You know what I mean?
Multitasking at its finest.
Exactly. So yeah.
And today we have a special guest, Christine. Hi, how you doing?
Hi.
What are you doing here?
I'm doing.
What are you doing here? What brings you here?
I am a researcher by training. I currently work at the universe.
The universe.
I currently work at Chinese University of Hong Kong at the social work department with a professor who specializes in suicide prevention and mental health for migrant domestic workers here in Hong Kong. But my own background, so I was trained in literature and cultural studies, which kind of, brought me to social work because of, thinking about how these issues are very, in literature and in cultural studies, the things we talk about are very abstract and very theoretical. And part of me as a researcher, what's important to me is that, my research is grounded in, things that can be materially beneficial to communities I work alongside. Since my research focus is race and migration in Asia. So yeah, let's unpack
Touchy
what
subject.
happened?
Let's go.
Last week, okay.
Yeah.
Woo.
So
Give us a little bit about context here.
so there was
What
a
happened?
show. It's called Barack O Karma.
What a tongue
Right.
twister.
So it is a. I'm just reading from the synopsis here. It is a 2019 Hong Kong supernatural romantic drama television series. I think it's on its second season.
The first
Yeah,
was second
They got
season.
season.
Second season, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
for second season.
So it's really cool. Like the whole horror romance kind of Twilight vibe.
Twilight.
So the issue at hand is a Chinese actress portrayed a migrant domestic worker, a Filipino migrant domestic worker in Hong Kong, and what got people pissed was, am I allowed to say pissed?
Yeah.
It's okay.
What got them riled up? Go on.
Is
What
how
happened?
she used brown face. So so brown face. Do you guys know what that is?
Yes.
Heard of
For
it?
anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah. Do you wanna?
For anybody who doesn't know, brownface, it has roots in blackface, where white people used to blacken their skin to portray black people, normally in a caricature type of way, like big lips, really big eyes, and really, really black skin. So the brownface equivalent would be, brown, basically, because Filipinos are brown race.
They're kind of like from blackface, like similar to the 50s. Like you have the whole Jim Crow and everything.
Yes.
And even it's still rooted into like pop culture, but sometimes people either make out of it, but somehow like now I feel like nowadays people get offended by it so easily.
But yeah, like going back to the show. So the plot revolves around this domestic worker who is accused of witchcraft, and in Tagalog the term is.
She was accused of kulam. Kulam is roughly translated, witchcraft, or I think in the show it's voodoo.
I want to hear from you, as Filipinos. How did you react to this?
I'm gonna go on and say it. Like when I saw it, like initially I thought, okay, like it didn't cut as much heat as like when I initially saw it. But then, as the days went by, I started noticing people posting a lot of the stuff going on. I'm just like, okay, what is actually going on? Watch the video, and it's just like putting makeup to just pretend to be a Filipino. I'm just like, you are not us. I don't understand why you have to go this far to act Filipino when you're technically, literally not one.
And the fact that she said, I'm not becoming her, I am her. I remember I watched the video and she said, "I am her," which no, you're not. You have not experienced the difficulties and any of the bad things that we experience on the daily as somebody who lives in a foreign country.
Yeah,
so she's local, right?
Yeah, let's unpack that a little. So I want to hear about your own experience in Hong Kong, because I feel like that's something that can shed light to the issue, right? And we'll unpack that in terms of, you know, exactly what you said, right? You don't go through the same things we go through. So what are some of the things that we experience with as being a foreigner to Hong Kong?
You?
I mean, it will always be like the language barriers or the assumption, or always the assumption that they think you know Cantonese. Because every time I have to always order something, they have to assume that, oh, this person might know Cantonese. He might have been here longer. Or even, actually for my case, because like, I'm Filipino Chinese, because I have a Chinese side from my mom.
I see.
In a way, like my mom will always say, like, if I would have a much more, well, I would say darker tone if I got it from my dad, but with my mom's side, kind of made me a little brighter. So, but even from my mom, whenever I see her, even people would always mistake her as a full Chinese.
Oh, I see.
So sometimes even for me, it's just like either for me or for her, even if how many times we take Cantonese classes, it's just sometimes people they assume that, okay, this person might know Cantonese, but the moment I start speaking English, we're gonna have like a 5-minute, 10-minute argument in the checkout counter already.
And the high school students, they have a lot of trouble. They enroll in like tutorial classes just to improve, and you know, A for effort, basically. Appreciate the effort also, but then also as foreigners, we also have to do our part in trying to learn Canto, at least the bare minimum or the conversational level, yeah. Because otherwise, yeah, you really will have a hard time. And I also had to learn because I moved here 6 years ago.
Okay.
I moved here 6 years ago. And my Canto level is not good. It's not good. Although people have said that, you know, when you're speaking a different language, I think that, you know, if you at least try, most of the time they're gonna appreciate the effort. Because we're the same, right? When Filipinos encounter, let's say, a local, and then they say, magandang umaga or kamusta, we appreciate it, right?
Wow.
It's like, wow, you know, like, thank you that you're aware of this word and you're using it to an actual Filipino person.
Right. To impress us.
To impress us and like build a good relationship, I guess. But yeah, it's nice when they're acknowledging your presence and trying their best to include you in the conversation. That's why when stuff like this happens, it really hits you, like, because there's such a big community, a big Filipino community here in Hong Kong.
That's interesting. Like the points you brought up on feeling included.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the things I'm trying to think through in my own work is the idea of multiculturalism.
Yes.
In Hong Kong. I don't know about you, but I went to a local school when I was in primary, and they always had these multicultural days. So they would make everyone dress up in their own
I also went to a local school.
Yeah.
I went to a local school as well.
I think YMCA had like...
I went to 3 different schools. I went through Sir Eros Cadori, Delia Broadway, and YMCA at the same time.
So at the same time?
Well, not really
at the same time.
Sorry, not the same time.
Chronologically.
One after the other.
Yeah.
One after the other.
Yeah.
So, but then they're all like ethnic minority majority based type of schools.
In Hong Kong we have this term designated schools, right?
Right.
And the origins of that was basically in, I think, 2012. I want to say 2012, or even before that. The Education Bureau put a lot of money into schools, certain schools, to admit ethnic minority students, for lack of a better term. And what happened is that a majority of these ethnically diverse communities would send their kids there, right? Because, it's like they have a community. But what is the effect of that? It's basically segregation, right? You're putting people you're segregating a community from the majority, which is really weird when you think about it, right? And what are the long-term effects of that? You get, the local Chinese community who can go through their entire education without
encountering.
Exactly.
And the same goes for the ethnic minorities, right? If you're living here, you wouldn't have the opportunity to learn about the local
or even
culture,
engage,
which creates more discord because both communities can't learn from each other.
Racism is, as many people have,
It's subtle. It's like a thorn on their side.
Kind of like a silent killer in a way.
Exactly. So it's done through these very passive acts, right? And that there's a term for that. It's called racial microaggression.
Oh.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And that term is used to, describe these little acts, right, of prejudice that are.
It's not vocal, right?
It's vocal as well.
Oh,
so
can be?
So can be.
Can be.
There's a list, and there are different categories. Researchers have put together this list based on their own experience.
Right.
And the term was coined by this African American professor at Harvard in the 1970s called Chester Pierce. So if you want to do more research on it, feel free. There's like a whole, different categories. But essentially at the root of it is, questions like, where are you really from?
Oh my god.
All those ones.
Or,
Oh my God.
you don't look Filipino.
Oof. One time I got mistaken to a Nepalese once before, and that's one thing for
It's
sure.
like the racial profiling.
Yeah.
I mean, no, for that case, that would be like when you confuse other ethnic minorities for your own race. It's like, oh, I thought you were Nepalese, and I'm like, oh no, I'm Filipino, and then it's like the other way around. It's like, I thought you were Filipino. Like, no, I'm Nepalese. It's just like,
Just a funny thing,
oh
I guess.
my, because I that was the first thing I
Spider-Man
experienced.
meme.
Exactly. I thought I experienced that first day in YMCA, and like a Nepalese girl came up to me and she's like speaking to me in Nepalese, thinking I was Nepalese, and I was like, I'm sorry, what did you say? Oh, I thought you were Nepalese. No, I'm Filipino. I thought you were Filipino.
No, see, that's so interesting, and it's like that's a really nice lighthearted example, right? But how do we take it from there, right? I feel like a lot of us growing up in Hong Kong are not equipped with the vocabulary to address cultural insensitivity, right? And our first instinct as, I think, humans is to defend yourself, right?
Yes.
When you're put into a fight or flight
Yes,
situation,
that's
right?
Survival instinct.
It's like, I need to defend myself. So how do I do that, right? I get aggressive. I become super defensive, and in some cases attack people. But when someone, like, for example, going back to the show, right? What do you do? So there's this phrase called, two phrases, calling in versus calling out. So when you call people out, I think you guys know, when you call someone out, what is it?
To call someone out is basically to expose? Well, no. Question why they think like that.
Yes. Calling out is like exposing, and when you're telling someone that their behavior is unacceptable and intolerable. But what's calling in?
Is it just the opposite? Just looking in and questioning why I think like that?
Ooh, yes, that is great.
Actually?
That's it. But it's not. It's also, so calling in is when you stop and ask them to further reflect on why this assumption, why these prejudices, why these biases are problematic. Right? It's so when you after you realize, oh, you're Filipino, oh, you're Nepali, and then what happens? Why do we have these biases? And that ties back, I think this is a good way to segue back to the show and the issue of brown skin.
Right.
Because I feel like Filipinos, South Asians, the stereotype is that we're all brown skin.
Yeah.
But in reality, there's many skin tones, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not just like, Pantone.
There's no
You know what
black.
I mean?
There's no black and white, but we're all in the gray side of things.
That
There's
color
many
palette.
shades of, well, not only Filipinos, obviously. I mean, other races too.
Exactly.
It's not like all Americans are white skin. There are
light skin.
sorry, not all
No,
Americans
no.
are light-skinned. There's also dark-skinned Americans. And even for other Central Asians, like, say, also like Indians, right? They're stereotyped as having dark skin. But also, I've encountered, light-skinned Indians. Just because they're in the minority doesn't mean they don't exist. Light-skinned Filipinos, medium-skinned Filipinos, medium tone.
Yeah.
They exist.
Again, our color palette is just insane.
Yeah.
So that being said, there's the issue of colorism. So have you heard of that term?
Oh, yes.
Do you wanna? What do you?
Colorism can be described roughly as profiling somebody's race based on the color of their skin.
Yeah.
So assuming you're such and such because you have light skinned or dark skin. Such.
Yeah. And it also refers to the prejudice. So
Yes.
I feel like a conversation that we need to have in East Asian communities or Southeast Asian communities is this prejudice against dark-skinned people. So where is this coming from, right? Like, why does everyone, in the Philippines we have, my mom would always be like, use this papaya soap, it's gonna make your skin brighter.
It's like internalized racism.
Yes?
Which can be traced back to, I guess, colonialism.
Yes! Bingo! The C
Ding,
word.
ding, ding,
That
ding,
is
ding,
what. Bing, 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 bing. That is exactly.
You won the jackpot.
That is what I wanted to get to. So, at the root
I'm
of it
aware.
all, it is colonialism. Unfortunately. But this can be dated back to, years ago. So, for the
far
Philippines, do you know how many times we've been colonized?
I think I remember it was the U.S., the Spaniards, Japanese, if you count World War II.
Yeah. So it's
I
3.
studied there, so I know.
Nice.
I grew up in the Philippines.
Wait, which
actually.
one is it? Japanese before the Americans?
No,
No.
Spanish.
It was
No. I
No.
mean, like, I know the Spanish were the first. I'm saying, like, after that.
Spanish, American, Japanese, and then they after that there was American, I guess, or no,
I
they
guess for a
they
time.
get full
I guess
independence.
for a time, yeah. Well, I mean, because Philippines, in my opinion, okay, Filipinos have such internalized racism that they hate their own race. They drag each other down. They try their best to not be Filipino.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why with the whole, there are things in the Philippines like Bello, which is a skin whitening
Yes.
dermatology company,
Oh, my.
and exactly what you said, right? Like, we don't want to associate ourselves with brown skin. But it's interesting because to address the reactions amongst the Filipino community here to this. So of course you do have the people who are against it.
Yes.
And it's some people are interesting because they're like, oh, we have to embrace our brown skin. Therefore, she's not doing anything wrong. But I think the gap there.
Which I see it, yes.
Yes.
But there's something about why couldn't you just have gotten a brown-skinned Filipino
Who can speak Chinese?
who can speak Chinese?
So that's an interesting point to bring in because you do have, there is a sizable there is a sizable community of Filipino actors and actresses here in Hong Kong. But there's also the issue of typecasting. So typecasting is when a particular group is, in auditions or in auditions for films, for movies,
Plays
for
or
performances, for plays. A particular group of people gets casted for the same role. In this case, it's Filipinos being casted for domestic
Yes.
workers.
Similar with like Western media, because I think whenever they try to cast an Indian actor or actress, they're always put into IT support type of roles.
Yes, exactly. So you have Big Bang Theory, and then you have like the Asian Doctor, or these things. So like it's something to take into consideration. There are some Filipino actors and actresses who have voiced out like I have stopped accepting these roles because I don't want to play into the stereotype and feed perpetuate these ideas of Filipinos being the stupid helper, right, or the careless helper.
Like in short, you're to stop adding oil to the flame in a way.
Yeah. And then there's the issue of representation, right? So why didn't you cast a Filipino? So representation is a big term. I don't think we can unpack all of it
Yes.
for this episode.
We don't have enough time for that.
We don't, but I feel like it's important to, I guess moving forward, right? How do we better represent these communities?